So after finishing Mirage, just like in any other AC game, I stayed a while to refine my craft, completing side missions and all that, maybe a couple of trophies here and there. But I quickly realized that there isn't much left to do. The thing about short games is, after powering through the story like a hero you are, you gotta find ways to keep yourself engaged with the $40 you just spent. And there are a lot of great games that provide extensive after-story content that lasts tens of hours, or even more. With Mirage, this isn't the case. I mean, the gameplay is still good, but there isn't exactly an archive of untold legends you can dive into, hidden chambers of side quests, no riddles to solve or NPCs to meddle with. So I did what any unstimulated AC player would do. I went back to Unity. Now, let's be clear, I didn't go back to Unity for the story, because let's face it, neither game really offer much in terms of replayability. I mean, I find Basim more likable as a character, but I can relate to Arno more. But Unity just has a special level of quality that I don't find in any other Assassin's Creed game, even the RPG trilogy that are admittedly my favorite of the franchise. Visually, to me, the game looks pretty much on par with Mirage. The details, the texture, and the lighting. Mirage has better shading for sure, but everything else, it's basically the same. You can see in the side-by-side comparison here, both on the RTX 4070 with Intel i9, kind of a mid-range device, I guess, but you can still see a pretty decent level of details. I do get better frame rates on Mirage, though. Might have something to do with my settings on Unity. But yeah, when you put the two games next to each other, it's hard to believe they're 10 years apart. Gameplay-wise, there are a lot of good things I can say about both games. Arno has always been the alpha dog of parkour, and that's still true to this day. For some reason, Unity parkour system never carried over to any other AC game. I feel like they could have, easily implemented it in Mirage. I mean, I'm not saying Mirage parkour is bad, it's still better than all of the recent games, including Syndicate, but it just didn't live up to the hype. Probably because most of us came in expecting it to be just as good as Unity. Surprisingly, when it comes to stealth, I think Mirage does it better. It's nowhere near the challenge that I'm sure most of us wanted, but it's certainly more challenging than the rest of the AC games. Though I admit Unity has a lot more variety in its stealth missions. There are even side missions you can keep replaying and trying different strategies. But like after you finish the game, you get this super overpowered sword that would just hack anyone down in one hit. Even elites can only take like 2 hits. So I think that kind of encourages more combat, which it should, since now like no one can even touch you. But in Mirage though, you don't want to get caught too often. The elites are way harder to deal with, and it's never a good idea to fight more than one at the same time. And they're more alert than the enemies in Unity. Even on the streets, if you look at them the wrong way, they'll come charging. But they don't have to, 'cause you got all the stupid civilians ratting you out constantly. But anyway, I like the stealth in Mirage because as a, I guess, novice assassin, you don't really have any other option but to sneak around and clear your own path. And when you do, the game rewards you with really satisfying animation, and you can actually feel the impact of your action. There's even a slow motion cutscene before an assassination that tells you, oh yeah, this guy is dead. And I enjoy that, in video games only, of course. So, in terms of combat, there isn't much to compare here, because it's like non-existent in either game, which makes sense, because you're an assassin, you shouldn't be engaging in combat. But for the sake of comparison, Unity combat is exactly like that in any of the old AC game. You hit them until they're dead. When they attack, game tells you to block, you block, and they're dead. Same thing happens in Mirage, but I guess now it's more visually acceptable, since they stopped doing the little warning flashing icon. That thing is probably the most annoying thing in the entire franchise up until the RPG titles. It's the biggest reason I play with all my HUD turned off. In Unity, there's a wider variety of weapons you can use. You can even choose different pistols, or just use a rifle as your main hand. Also, there are different finishers depending on the weapon you use, but none of this matters because the fight is always the same. Your gameplay doesn't change because you use a different weapon. This is one of the things that the RPG Assassin's Creed do better. And it's also one of the biggest reasons some players hate it, because there's more combat than sneaking around killing people. But overall, I think Mirage has a slight edge in combat here. I know it's odd because I've made clear before that I don't like Mirage combat, but Unity combat is just so much worse. It's not really about the quality of the animation, but more about the effort you have to put into each fight. In Mirage, The game makes you think before you engage an enemy with your sword. And during the fight, you need to think about what to do to make the most out of the weapons you're using. In Unity, you just kind of run through everything like a train, and it's not that entertaining. Another thing I want to mention is the world itself. I think an open world game is defined by the level of interaction you can have with it, or how alive it convinces you it is. In Unity, the world is very active and independent. What I mean is the civilians will do their things, and certain activities will trigger and carry out with or without you getting involved. You'll see people getting robbed, fighting each other, or even killed, and you can choose to interfere or just leave them to their fate. You'll see protests and angry mobs and people selling stuff at the market. All of that makes Paris alive and just believable. In this aspect, Unity is better than Mirage, despite how vibrant and detailed Baghdad is. In Mirage, all you do is hide from NPCs. They only do two things: call you names and call the guards. This is by far the worst open-world experience I've had in any game, let alone an Assassin's Creed game. A good open world makes you feel invested in the things that go on, the things that happen to its people. I don't get that in Mirage. In fact, it's literally the opposite. The desert is plain and boring, and even though it looks great, it doesn't immerse you. In Origins, I never had a problem running across the sand to get to where I'm going. Mirage makes me want to fast travel as often as possible. And that's just really disappointing. And there aren't any activities in the world either. All you do is pickpocket and bribe people. It doesn't make me want to walk around in the streets or just mess with the NPCs in general. It's a long shot, but I really hope Ubisoft fixes the notoriety system in the future. Let me enjoy the city for once. So in conclusion, I think you can already guess. Unity is a better game here, and it's kind of sad because a lot of people were excited for it. And for me, the biggest factor is that while they're both short games, I can always go back to Unity, and there are things to do. Missions to tackle, and an immersive city to enjoy. When I go back to Mirage, it's to a boring world full of people who hate me. I mean, for now anyway. I really hope Ubisoft decides to breathe new life into an otherwise great-looking map. But yeah, that's about all I have. Thanks for watching.
I will see you later.